Green Lanes, North London. To outsiders, a hub of culture and food. To those inside, a front line. For decades, the Hackney Turks and Tottenham Turks have fought a hidden war. A feud that began in the shadows of migration and ended in a storm of bullets, claiming dozens of lives and left an entire community scarred. This is not just a story of crime. It is a chronicle of betrayal, loyalty, and a cycle of violence that refuses to die. Welcome to Crime Pulse. If you're new here, hit subscribe and join our growing community digging into the UK's most dangerous criminal underworlds. Like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. Let's take a stroll back in history to where it all started in late 1970s. North London's Green Lanes became a crucible for a brutal underworld. Turkish gangs, fueled by migration and raw ambition, seized Europe's heroin boom, turning the UK into the continent's hungriest junkie. Tony Saggers, former chief of drug intelligence at the National Crime Agency, described it starkly. These syndicates exploited established immigrant supply chains, channeling pure heroin from the opium-rich fields of Afghanistan along treacherous routes through Iran's arid mountains and into the hidden corners of British cities by the 1990s. The Hackney Turks, formerly known as the Bombacillers, a predominantly Kurdish organization commanded by Hüseyin Baybashin, revered and feared as the Emperor, had seized unparalleled dominance. Police and intelligence reports at the time estimated Baybashin's network supplied a huge proportion of heroin into the UK. Some sources put that figure as high as 80 to 90%, a staggering empire that flooded streets from Manchester's industrial shadows to Glasgow's rain-slicked alleys. Dubbed Europe's Pablo Escobar for his audacious scale and evasion tactics, Baybashin's reign ended abruptly in 2001 when Dutch authorities sentenced him to life imprisonment in the Netherlands, following a raid on his fortified compound. With Hussein behind bars, his younger brother Abdullah Baybashin permanently confined to a wheelchair after a vicious 1986 assassination attempt by rivals, assumed leadership of the fractured organization. From his vantage in opulent North London residences, Abdullah wielded influence through subtle gestures of authority. Associates reverently kissed his hand, while his murmured directives carried the weight of unbreakable commands, evoking the quiet menace of a cinematic Don. This fragile interlude shattered in 2006 when British authorities, acting on years of covert surveillance, arrested him at his luxury home in Muswell Hill for orchestrating a vast heroin importation conspiracy, involving over 5.5 pounds of the drug, and a sophisticated blackmail operation that terrorized the Turkish Kurdish community through threats and extortion demands. Convicted swiftly, he received a 22-year prison sentence, a term the judge characterized as punishment for a mafia-type racket that preyed on vulnerable immigrants. Yet justice proved elusive. In 2010, the conviction unraveled amid prosecutorial mishandling during a retrial, leading to his immediate release and deportation to Turkey. There, authorities pursued him relentlessly, charging him with directing an international criminal network tied to drug trafficking. He would serve additional time before his eventual liberation in 2017. As the Baybashin shadow loomed, a new contender emerged in the late 1990s. The Tottenham Turks, also called the Tottenham Boys, a tenacious alliance forged in the Kurdish enclaves of southeastern Turkey. At its helm stood the Eron brothers, Isizet, the strategic visionary, Kemal, scarred by a violent past that cost him fingers in a brutal encounter, and Zafa, the unyielding enforcer, who methodically constructed a parallel narcotics dominion. They mastered the same Afghan heroin conduits, snaking through Turkey's borders, delivering consignments to the UK's insatiable demand, and amassing fortunes through layered operations in Tottenham, Haringey, and Wood Green. These included fortified drug distribution networks, extortion schemes, and arms trafficking that armed their foot soldiers with smuggled firearms. Law enforcement officials classified them as a sophisticated organized crime group, with tentacles extending to Europe and beyond. Their operations sustained by an intricate code of familial allegiance and ritualistic oaths reminiscent of traditional mafias. Amid the swelling ranks of London's Turkish diaspora, families seeking refuge and opportunity, the Tottenham Turks positioned themselves as an audacious insurgents, directly confronting the Baybashin stronghold over contested heroin highways that promised untold wealth. A simmering dispute erupted in November 9th, 2002, between the Hackney Bombassalars, loyal to the Beybashian family's heroin empire, and the rising Tottenham Turks, who were carving out their own dominion over North London's drug routes and extortion networks. Around 4 p.m., this tension exploded outside the Doslar locale, a modest social club owned by a Beybashian relative and a discreet hub for the Bombassalars' operations. Over 50 men, predominantly Turkish and Kurdish, reportedly clashed in a chaotic melee, wielding knives, baseball, and firearms that spat bullets through the crowded streets. Petrol bombs, hurled in desperation, erupted against shop fronts, their flames casting eerie shadows as terrified families and shoppers fled behind market stalls. Amid this turmoil, an innocent life was claimed. Alison Dogan, a 43-year-old Kurdish carpenter and devoted father of two, who worked as a cleaner at the Doslar locale, engaged in routine renovations, was caught in the crossfire as the brawl spilled onto the pavement, fatally stabbed in the chest. His collapse, blood pooling beneath him, marked a heart-rending loss for a community already strained by the underworld's grip. The clash left approximately 20 others injured, including 4 with gunshot wounds, some requiring urgent medical care. This devastating event prompted a robust law enforcement response, culminating in Operation Narita in January 2003, where over 500 officers raided 15 addresses across Haringey, Harrow and Hackney, targeting Turkish organized crime networks involved in heroin trafficking, arms smuggling and extortion. Though a suspect was later acquitted for Dogan's murder, the clash cemented the battle lines between the Hackney and Tottenham factions, heralding a relentless war for control of London's heroin empire, a conflict where trust was a luxury and every betrayal demanded blood. By 2009, the Hackney Turks, under the leadership of brothers Koral and Ali Armagan, had solidified their grip on North London's underworld, stepping into the power vacuum left by the Beybashian family's downfall in 2001 and 2006 respectively. Together with their rivals, the Tottenham Turks, known as the Tottenham Boys, and another Turkish-linked gang, they dominated the UK's heroin trade, funneling vast quantities from Afghan fields through Turkish routes, according to police intelligence. On January 24, 2009, at approximately 1 a.m., this simmering rivalry erupted at the Manor Club, a dimly lit snooker hall near Manor House Tube Station in Haringey, frequented by the Tottenham faction as a social and strategic hub according to reports. Isizet Eron, accompanied by his cousin Kemal Eron, and Mehmet Sempalit were gathered when Kemal Armagan, flanked by Hackney loyalists, confronted them, reigniting tensions over contested drug distribution networks. The encounter swiftly escalated into a violent brawl, with fists, bottles, and makeshift weapons clashing in the smoky confines of the club. Patrons scattered as the groups fought, their shouts echoing through the late-night streets. Kemal Armagan, bruised and bloodied from the brawl but unyielding, told responding officers, "I'm old school, I'll deal with it myself." A resolute pledge to seek retribution outside the law, according to a police intelligence report. On the evening of March 22, 2009, Amit Pitac, a 50-year-old shopkeeper, was methodically arranging shelves in his Euro wines and food store on Hornsey Road, Holloway, a modest shop serving the Turkish-Kurdish community in North London. Around 7 p.m., as the dusk settled over the quiet street, 2 Hackney Turks enforcers, mistaking Amit for a Tottenham informant linked to the ongoing turf war, sped toward the store on a stolen motorbike, their faces obscured. Without warning, 4 gunshots shattered the calm, the sharp cracks echoing off nearby buildings. One bullet ripped into Amit's stomach, causing him to stagger, while another grazed the leg of his 21-year-old son, Hussein, who dove behind a counter for cover, his shouts drowned by the chaos. Amit collapsed onto the cold pavement outside, blood pooling beneath him, his life slipping away as horrified onlookers called for help. Police and paramedics arrived swiftly, but Amit could not be saved. The killers were later tracked down and convicted of murder. Their life sentences are hollow justice for a grieving community. The Hackney Turks had sent back a chilling message, but this time, the cost was steep. Amit's killing fueled a burning rage among the Tottenham Turks for a relentless spiral of vengeance that would further darken North London's streets. The death toll in 2009 kept piling up after Amit Pitac killing. The Hackney Turks moved first to assert more dominance, pushing the feud into a more lethal territory. On October 2nd, 2009, Oktay Abbasli, a 23-year-old enforcer who had quickly risen through the ranks of the Tottenham Turks, was navigating the A10 highway near Tottenham, a bustling route often used for discreet drug shipments. Abbasli, known for his loyalty and hands-on role in coordinating heroin deliveries from the Eron family's international pipelines, was behind the wheel of a black Range Rover rented by Kemal Eron, the group's key strategist. Accompanying him were a woman and her 5-year-old son. It was around noon in traffic. A Hackney Bombassalas hitman, positioned on a motorbike for a clean getaway, pulled up alongside the Range Rover at the traffic lights. In a matter of seconds, he unleashed a barrage of gunfire, the shots precise and unrelenting. Bullets punctured the vehicle's door, one finding its mark in Abbasli's chest. He slumped forward against the steering wheel, lifeless. This calculated daylight execution, planned by the Hackney Turks as payback for Pitac's killing, underscored their willingness to strike anywhere, anytime. Abbasli's importance to the Tottenham operations made him a high-value target, and the attack reverberated through the community, where whispers of fear replaced the usual camaraderie in Turkish cafes. The message was clear and unforgiving. Vulnerability knew no bounds, stoking the Tottenham Turks' determination for a devastating counterstrike. Just 3 days after the cold-blooded execution of Oktay Abbasli on the A10, the Tottenham Turks struck back, plunging North London's Turkish underworld deeper into chaos. On the night of October 5th, 2009, around 10:45 p.m., the Clapton FC Social Club on Upper Clapton Road hummed with life. Among them was Sem Duzgan, a 21-year-old Islington local who worked at IKEA, grabbing a quick game of pool with mates after a long shift. He was no gangster, just a regular guy with no ties to the streets. 2 masked gunmen slipped into the club, one clutching a Mac 11 submachine gun. In a heartbeat, the mood shifted. Patrons froze as the air thickened with menace. Duzgan, sensing trouble, stepped toward the entrance, perhaps to check the commotion. That's when the gunfire erupted. 11 bullets tore through him at point-blank range, shredding his head, torso, arms, and legs. He crumpled to the floor, blood pooling on the tiles as screams echoed. The shooters vanished, one darting north toward Clapton Station, the other melting south into the night, leaving behind a scene of shattered glass and shell casings. This was no surgical hit. The Tottenham Turks, enraged by Abbasli's murder, had aimed for a Hackney Bombassalar insider, but hit Duzgan instead, a tragic case of mistaken identity in their quest for payback. The attack rocked the Turkish community. Once lively with chatter, now buzzed with whispers of fear, as families wondered who might be next. The culprits, Blaise Lunkula, the triggerman, alongside Yusuf Arslan, Ndombasi Makusu, and Christian Barabutu, were later tracked down in 2012 and convicted in 2014, facing a combined minimum of 114 years, but justice couldn't undo the damage. By 2012, the Hackney Turks and Tottenham Turks had been locked in this brutal feud for over a decade. This wasn't random violence anymore. It was a war built on motives, each blow fueling a relentless cycle of vengeance. On February 1st, the streets of North London bore witness to a chilling escalation, as the Hackney Bombassalas suffered a devastating loss to their empire. Ali Armagan, 32, a key figure steering the Bombassalas' heroin trafficking from their Hackney stronghold, parked his Mercedes outside Turnpike Lane tube station for what seemed a routine errand. As a trusted lieutenant, Ali's influence kept the group's drug network humming, but the Tottenham Turks, still seething over the 2009 killing of their own elders, had other plans. At dusk, 3 gunmen ambushed him, firing 6 shots through the windshield. A bullet struck Ali's neck, and he collapsed on the pavement, dead, as passers-by froze in shock. This calculated hit, a direct response, crippled the Bombassalas' leadership. The Tottenham Turks proved they could strike back at the heart of their rivals. The shooters were later arrested and handed life sentences, but the blow only fueled Hackney's resolve, ensuring the cycle of violence would churn on. The relentless clash tearing through North London streets showed no signs of cooling by late 2012. On a cold December evening in Edmonton, a mid-level associate of the Hackney Bombassalas, a loyal member of Armagan's former drug running crew, arrived at his home on a quiet residential street. As he stepped out, a vehicle carrying Tottenham Turks enforcers sped into view. Without warning, automatic gunfire erupted, bullets ripping through the associate's car and splintering the calm of the neighborhood. Acting on instinct, he dove for cover, sustaining wounds but narrowly escaping death. The shooters peeled away, disappearing into the thick fog that cloaked the night, leaving behind shattered glass and a rattled community. This drive-by ambush was no random act of violence. It was a deliberate move by the Tottenham Turks to cripple the Bombaçılar's heroin supply lines furthermore. The associate's survival proved costly for the attackers, as he later shared critical details with police, naming potential suspects and stoking the Bombaçılar's hunger for revenge. That same month, the feud's reach extended far beyond London. In Elbistan, southeastern Turkey, Kemal Eren, a pivotal Tottenham Turks strategist known as No Fingers, was ambushed and shot. The attack left him paralyzed, yet authorities believe he continued to guide the Tottenham operations from afar, his influence undiminished despite his physical wounds. These twin strikes, one on Edmonton streets and another in Turkey's heartland, underscored the relentless and far-reaching nature of the conflict. By April 2013, the long-running feud had escalated into a cycle of targeted killings, with each side aiming to dismantle the other's leadership. On April 18th, the Hackney Bombaçılar struck a significant blow against their rivals in a calculated assassination. Zafa Eron, 34, a senior figure in the Tottenham Turks and cousin to other key members like Isizet and Kemal Eron, left his home on Southgate High Street, Enfield, for a routine errand. As a central player in the group's drug trafficking operations, Zafa's authority helped maintain Tottenham's grip on North London's heroin trade. The Hackney Bombaçılar, still reeling from the December 2012 Edmonton ambush, saw an opportunity for retaliation. Jamie Marsh-Smith, a hired gunman, trailed Zafa to his home and opened fire with a 9mm pistol near his BMW, striking him multiple times in the head and chest. Zafa collapsed outside his residence and died at the scene. This deliberate hit, linked to the ongoing tit-for-tat violence, severely weakened the Tottenham Turks' leadership structure. Marsh-Smith was arrested, convicted of murder in 2014, and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 38 years. Though shaken, the Tottenham Turks prepared to respond, ensuring the feud's deadly momentum continued. The 2013 loss of Zafa drove his brother Isizet Eron to take charge and seek vengeance. In 2014, Isizet traveled to Bodrum, Turkey, where he carried out a targeted shooting outside a bar, killing one man, reportedly a Hackney associate named Kabala, and leaving another paralyzed in a wheelchair. This attack led to murder charges against Isizet in Turkey. The violence continued into 2015. On April 18th, the second anniversary of Zafa's murder, Isizet Eron, brother to Tottenham figure Kemal Eron and cousin to Isizet, was shot and killed in Gaziantep, southeastern Turkey. This deliberate hit, carried out by Hackney Turks associates as direct payback for Izet's Bodrum revenge shooting, highlighted the feud's ritualistic precision and unyielding vendettas, striking at the Eron family's core even abroad. After serving a drug-related sentence in the UK, Isizet was deported to Turkey in early 2015 to face trial for the Bodrum killing. He escaped custody later that year and smuggled himself back to the UK. On October 13, 2015, police stopped him in North London riding a stolen motorbike with accomplice Aaron Haysher. They were carrying a loaded pistol and a Scorpion submachine gun, both with safety catches off, and authorities believed they were planning a revenge attack. Isizet and Haysher admitted to firearms offences and were remanded to Wormwood Scrubs prison awaiting sentencing. Later that year, on December 11th, the Tottenham Turks' loyalty to Isizet Eron led a daring attempt to free him during transport from Wormwood Scrubs to Wood Green Crown Court for his firearm sentencing. A group of associates, including 28-year-old Jermaine Baker, a Tottenham local with no known gang affiliations but drawn into the one-off plot, used a stolen Audi and other vehicles armed with handguns, a sawn-off shotgun, and an imitation Uzi to ram the prison van in a planned ambush. Metropolitan Police, acting on prior intelligence, had armed officers stationed nearby. As the plot unfolded, an officer known as W80 fired a single shot through the Audi's windshield, striking Baker in the chest as he appeared to reach for a bag. which was later found to contain no weapon. Baker, a father of two, died at the scene. The failed breakout led to the arrest and conviction of several plotters in 2016, with sentences totaling over 100 years. A 2022 public inquiry deemed Baker's shooting lawful but criticized police planning and intelligence handling. Isizet received an additional 7.5 years, bringing his total sentence to 21 years for the firearms offenses. The incident, a rare direct clash between the gangs and law enforcement, highlighted the feud's escalating stakes, pulling in even those on the fringes and leaving North London's Turkish community on edge. Following the fallout from the 2015 Wood Green shootout, North London's Turkish community seemed to be calm, with the Tottenham Turks and Hackney bombashlers locked in a simmering stalemate. But by 2022, the feud reignited again with a brutal act that pulled an innocent figure into its deadly orbit once again. On October 13, 2022, Mert Koral Alpergin, a 43-year-old Turkish radio DJ, known for his vibrant broadcasts from a White Hart Lane studio, was targeted after a performance near Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. A crew linked to the Tottenham Turks, enraged over disrupted heroin shipments they believed Alpergin had exposed, ambushed him and his girlfriend, Gözde Dalbudak, outside a Mayfair bar. Driving a stolen Audi, they abducted the pair and took them to an Essex lockup. There, Alpergin endured 10 hours of torture, beaten, branded, and stuffed alive into a suitcase before his body was dumped in Woodland. His girlfriend Dalbudak survived, later identifying the perpetrators to police. In 2024, 3 men were convicted for Alpergin's murder, receiving life sentences, though key figures fled abroad, evading capture. The savagery of Alpergin's killing, striking a civilian, left the Hackney bomber sealers incensed by the Tottenham Turks' audacity and began plotting their response. After his 2016 conviction, Isizet Eron was deported to Turkey in September 2019 to face charges for a 2014 Bodrum shooting that killed a Hackney associate. Within weeks, he escaped custody, using his network to vanish. By May 2022, amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he resurfaced in Moldova, crossing from Ukraine through the Transnistria region among war refugees. A UK Interpol warrant issued that year, linked to his role in importing 156 kilograms of heroin from Iran to Heathrow and his prison escape, led to his arrest in Chisinau. He was held for 18 months while appealing an asylum claim, citing Kurdish-Turkish persecution, but on July 3, 2024, his request was denied and he was released on bail pending extradition. On July 10, 2024, while seated at a cafe in Chisinau's Riskani district, Kemal Armagan, a Hackney bombashlars leader, struck. Wearing camouflage and riding an electric bike, Armagan allegedly fired 7 9mm rounds into Eron's back and head, killing him instantly before fleeing. Moldovan police, describing the attack as a rare professional assassination, later released CCTV footage showing the masked gunman. The hit was carried out in retaliation for the 2012 murder of Armagan's brother, Ali, which Eron had long been accused of orchestrating. Armagan was eventually arrested in Izmir, Turkey, on March 10, 2025, carrying a false identity. He now faces extradition to Moldova alongside accomplices, including Topa Hassan, a former UK lawyer detained for providing logistical support. Criminologist Dr. Mahmoud Cengiz of George Mason University's Department of Criminology, Law and Society analyzed the assassination as a decisive escalation. Targeting and killing the Tottenham Turks leader sends a strong message, and further reprisals are likely, he said. If you can eliminate a group leader, it proves you are the most powerful organization. The Tottenham Turks will have to respond by striking Hackney's leadership to show they are still active and fighting for the criminal markets. Eron's death dealt a heavy blow to the Tottenham Turks, but for North London's Turkish community, it underscored an unshakable truth. This feud's vendettas cross borders, and no one is beyond reach. By late May 2024, the Hackney Turks and Tottenham Turks feud had simmered into a tense standoff in North London, but a brazen attack shattered the quiet in Dalston. On May 29th, around 9:20 p.m., a gunman on a stolen white Ducati monster motorcycle roared up to the Evan restaurant on Kingsland High Street, a popular spot where Turkish families gathered. He fired 6 shots from a semi-automatic pistol, targeting 3 Hackney Turks associates seated outside. Mustafa Kiziltan, 56, wounded in the thigh, Kenan Idogdu, 42, his leg severely injured, and Nasser Ali, 49, suffering a fractured spine. The men, linked to the Hackney bombardillers, were rushed to hospital with serious but non-fatal injuries. In the chaos, a stray bullet struck a 9-year-old girl who was enjoying ice cream with her family after recently arriving in the UK for a better life. The round lodged in her brain, requiring emergency surgery and 3 months in ICU, where doctors used titanium plates to reconstruct her skull. She survived but faces lifelong physical and emotional scars, her family left devastated by the random horror. The shooting, orchestrated by the Tottenham Turks as retaliation, was a botched hit that spared no one. Javon Riley, 33, from Tottenham, and acting as the hired spotter and getaway driver, had played a key role in the planning. Driving a grey Volkswagen Polo, he circled the restaurant multiple times beforehand to confirm the 3 targets were present, signaling to the gunman via phone before pulling away to wait nearby. Riley was arrested weeks later after police traced the car's movements through CCTV and phone data. At the Old Bailey trial in July-August 2025, Riley was convicted on August 18th of 3 counts of attempted murder and causing grievous bodily harm with intent to the girl. On September 12th, Judge Mark Dennis sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years, describing his actions as part of a cowardly and callous gangland plot that endangered civilians. 3 accomplices were also convicted of conspiracy to murder and firearms offences, receiving combined sentences totaling over 50 years. The gunman remains at large despite CCTV footage and a £20,000 Crime Stoppers reward. The May 29th, 2024, Evan restaurant shooting, where a 9-year-old girl and 3 Hackney bombardillers associates were struck by a Tottenham Turks gunman, left North London's Turkish Kurdish communities reeling. For the Hackney bombardillers, the attack on their turf and the innocent casualty fueled immediate vows of revenge. In areas like Haringey, Hackney, and Enfield, the incident deepened fear, turning everyday gatherings into potential flashpoints in an unending war over drug routes and old grudges. Over 2 decades, this feud has claimed dozens of lives, leaving a diaspora of 100,000 to navigate a landscape of suspicion and loss. As long as heroin pipelines fuel the conflict, the cycle of blood shows no sign of breaking, staining the streets and shattering the dreams of a community that sought refuge in London, only to find a new kind of war. The feud's relentless momentum has carried on into 2025 with another targeted strike. On August 5th, around 12:30 a.m., Erdal Osman, a 45-year-old senior figure in the Hackney bombardillers, was gunned down outside his newly opened Kurdish social club on Stoke Newington High Street. Osman, a father of 2 who arrived in the UK in 2000 fleeing persecution in Turkey, had a long history with the bombers, including a 15-year sentence in 2003 for attempted murder, blackmail, and arson tied to a Tottenham shooting. Released around 2018, he resumed a prominent role, allegedly extorting local businesses. No arrests have been made, but police recovered shell casings, and the club was shuttered under a closure order for its ties to organised crime. A floral tribute with a Turkish note pleading for unity, "Enough is enough," marked the spot. The Ali Armagan feud overstretched the Metropolitan Police, with Operation Venom diverting officers from tackling burglaries and assaults to monitor the conflict, weakening community safety. Socially, the violence divides families and fuels distrust. Over 2 decades, at least 20 deaths have caused intergenerational trauma, with psychologists noting higher PTSD and substance abuse rates in affected areas. Internationally, violent incidents in Turkey, Moldova, and beyond strain EU to UK extradition cooperation and tarnish the diaspora's reputation, hindering integration through language and youth programs. Drop your thoughts below on how communities can break free from this cycle of violence and rebuild trust. Smash that subscribe button on Crime Pulse to stay connected for more gripping crime stories and hard-hitting updates.